my name is Jamal Cyrus, and I am a artist, Houston artist, and as well as professor in the art department of Texas Southern University. And I am also one of the curators of the exhibition Levels and Layers in Artist Reflection on Third Ward. The exhibition Levels and Layers is partnered with an exhibition I've also done at the Blaffer Museum called The End of My Beginning. The End of My Beginning is a collection of works that I have been doing since roughly 2006, which focus on different aspects of Black American culture, music, politics, as well as aesthetics. I work between different mediums, but primarily sculpture and drawing, and there's a little bit of performance in there. A lot of the material or ideas that I work with in my art practice relate to history, to the function of music in Black culture, as well as Black resistance and social movements. Levels and Layers is more so a curatorial endeavor, which tries to highlight the culture of the visual arts culture of the neighborhood of Third Ward, which, in my understanding, starts with Dr. John Biggers as a movement, and then spreads out to his students. But then there are also other people who are working within the neighborhood who fall under what people call vernacular or folk art. As well as there were commercial artists who are working at the same time. There were within the neighborhood many different approaches to art making that existed simultaneously. And in the exhibition, one of the things also that I try to highlight is that this is intergenerational. His influence kind of goes until the present. It may not look exactly how it did, early on, but still, like the motivating principles behind his artistic vision and philosophy are still very, very much present. And this is important to me because it's also the place which I really feel that I was kind of reared and developed as an artist. So the two exhibitions, they kind of work in tandem in a way to give you a sense of what created me and where I am and where I've been as an artist. We're in the first section, which is really centered around the art department of Texas Southern University, and which has a very particular approach and understanding of art and art history, right? And the key players within organizing that were Dr. John Biggers and Carol Sims. And so within this particular section, we highlight drawings, paintings, ceramics, as well as weavings that were created in the department early on. That department with very little resources, but just a strong desire to create beauty and to create these things which they felt reflected Black American culture. Art making was one of the ways that I was really able to find myself and to find out, I guess, just my power as a human. Then one of the things that TSU did was to help me to understand the culture that I was a part of and their contributions to art making, to global art, which with my previous places I'd gone to school with, that hadn't really happened in the same way. So it was another kind of education that happened here that really allowed me to find my voice and to find my place, in art making. So in this section here, we're kind of going into the perspective within Third Ward, which is people who were to really fall more into the vernacular category of art making, such as sign painters, and just the look and the role that they had or they played in influencing look and feel in the neighborhood. And that was really one of the things that I noticed when I came in to Third Ward, like in the early 90s. It's just like the hand painted signs in particular. So those, this is something that always stayed with me. So we're in front of a sign that was done by a gentleman named Israel McLeod, who comes from I believe 2 generations of sign painters. His father was a sign painter. His brother's a sign painter, and him himself are sign painters. And so he did the piece here behind me, and it's really what we asked him to do was to on the wall to represent places that primarily nightclubs and entertainment venues that were important during what might be like the heyday of Third Ward. And coupled with that, we have a painting by a gentleman named Carl Hall, who was a TSU student here. That we picked up a painting that kind of reflects that kind of street life, urban environment that Third Ward really kind of represented at one time. One of the things that we don't really understand, because maybe we didn't kind of go through that similar development upbringing, is the nature of segregated communities, right? And that that they had to be self-sufficient in many different ways, like in terms of businesses, but also in terms of spiritual support, psychological support, medical support, like all of these, like totally self-sufficient. And so, when these places, there are places where people will go to have fun and be entertained, but they're working on a much deeper level. But the other thing is that we should think about with them and with that particular history is that because of gentrification and because of some of the changes that are happening within these spaces, they no longer exist in the same way. One of the very notable sign painters within Third Ward, we talked about Israel McLeod. There are really 3 that are working right now. Israel McLeod, Bobby Ray, who did these ice letters, the alphabet, and then there's another gentleman who we'll see a little bit later on named Walter Stansel. So right now, like those are the carriers of the sign painting tradition in Third Ward. So we have to have that there, and there's another picture here in the corner, which is by Louise Martin. And this was a portrait of Martin Luther King, who did visit here in the 1960s, who must have taken the portrait during that particular time. We placed it there as a kind of like a almost talismanic photograph, kind of overlooking the gallery. So these 2 works are by Early Hudnall, who also went through the TSU art department, but primarily chose to work as a photographer, or is most notably a photographer. It was just capturing the whole kind of Jerry curl culture phenomenon. But another thing that it captures is the hand-lettered painting of the windows, right? So again, trying to aesthetic influence that they had on the neighborhood, and I thought this just really captured that moment very well. Part of the art history of the neighborhood are also organizations, and 2 are very important. One, which is the Community Artists Collective that was run by Michelle Barnes, and the other is Project Row Houses that was run by Rick Lowe. And so within the exhibition, we have some of the photographs that we received from the Project Row House archive of the houses in the early state, which is 1992, 93, and then later on as they had been renovated. One of the things to consider with Project Row Houses and the work of Rick Lowe, that although it's considered to be a more conceptual approach to art making with this idea of social sculpture, it is really it is also very indebted to the tradition of Dr. John Biggers and the ideas that he would spread to his students, primarily through the shotgun house and what the shotgun house was a symbol of, right? So the shotgun house within the work of Dr. Biggers was really a symbol of the African American family as well as the diaspora. The shotgun house is a form that many people consider to have been developed in West Africa, came into the Caribbean, primarily Haiti, up from Haiti into the southern United States, and then kind of branched out from there. But in his research was really able to connect it to the history and movement of Black people. So one of the things that I do think is interesting is about the biggest philosophy is that it can kind of be used to fuel all of these kind of different approaches to art making that don't only have to do with drawing and painting. Although there were many artists in Third Ward who worked within the quote unquote vernacular kind of field. One of the most notable is Cleveland Turner, also known as the Flower Man. So these are two photographs. One of his first house, which was off of Elgin, then the second house, which was more so like off of Dowling Street or Emancipation. And as we'll see, he is also a figure that gets picked up, or maybe his aesthetic, kind of his approach to his visual style gets picked up later by some of the generations of artists who will come after him. We're in a new section here, which is really about the later generations of artists who were come out of Third Ward. Group called Otabinga Jones and Associates, which I was a part of. Another kind of collective of artists, Philip Powell and Greg Carter, have had a couple of different names, but right now are operating a company called Third Ward's Finest that produces T-shirts that are reflective of different events and people who are important to Third Ward's history. This is about Project Row Houses. Rick Lowe is the primary kind of head, or was the primary kind of head of Project Row Houses. Was really created by this group of people: James Bettison, Burt Long, Jesse Lott, Rick Lowe, Floyd Newsom, Bert Samples, and George Smith. Right, so this kind of team of artists who have been also very important to Houston's art history. These are two artists who are also in an exhibition who also, like Otabinga Jones, like Third Ward's Finest, were organized and kind of grew up artistically within this neighborhood, or through connection to Row House or the Community Artists Collective, and it's a collective called Root. So this is a drawing by Rabea here, which is focused on the formal aspects of African hairstyles and decoration. And we have a piece by Ann Johnson, who really works in much like a sculptural, much more sculptural kind of mixed media fashion. Through this exhibition, we would really ask people to contribute works, right? We were acknowledging people for their the role they played, or them being a part of this art history, and we asked them to contribute work. So really it's more of a acknowledgement of the importance of Root, right? Like as you were saying, like as a female collective of artists, one of the first that I'm aware of within Houston.